All right, so you're clearly interested in figuring out Warren Buffett's investment strategies. And that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah,
Deals of Warren Buffett Volume 3.
absolutely.
Specifically the Wells Fargo, US Air, and American Express stories. We want to kind of uncover what made these deals tick, what went right, what went disastrously wrong,
Yeah.
and what lessons we can learn from them.
Well, what's so fascinating about this volume is that it really captures the essence of Buffett's contrarian approach,
Okay.
especially in the context of the early 1990s.
You mean that whole be greedy when others are fearful philosophy?
Exactly.
Wasn't that when the U.S. banking industry was like in a full-blown crisis?
Exactly. Asset values were plummeting. Loan defaults were rampant. It was a time when most investors were running for the hills,
Right.
but not Buffett.
Mm-hmm.
He saw opportunity in the midst of all that fear.
Yeah.
And that's where the Wells Fargo story begins.
Okay, so let's talk Wells Fargo. This wasn't just a dip in the market. This was a full-blown banking crisis. What did Buffett see that everyone else missed?
He saw a bank with incredibly strong fundamentals, even in the face of a crisis. Wells Fargo had this history of high returns, a laser focus on efficiency, and a really tight grip on costs. And they had this leader, Carl Reichardt,
Right.
who's legendary for his frugality.
Wait, wasn't there a story about him refusing to buy a Christmas tree with company money?
There is.
Really?
That's the kind of cost-conscious leadership that Buffett admires.
Wow.
And it paid off big time.
Wow.
Wells Fargo not only weathered the storm, but actually thrived during the recession. Their net interest margin, the difference between the interest they earned on loans and the interest they paid on deposits, remained significantly higher than the industry average. They even managed to reduce their non-interest expenses by a staggering 12% as a percentage of revenue during those years.
So while other banks were floundering, Wells Fargo was actually getting leaner and meaner.
Exactly. And that's what allowed them to come out of the recession even stronger than before.
But hold on, didn't Wells Fargo later get caught up in a major scandal?
Yes,
Opening millions of fake accounts?
that happened much later and was a significant ethical lapse. They were fined billions of dollars and faced a lot of public scrutiny.
Yeah.
It's important to remember, though, that this scandal didn't negate the core business principles that initially attracted Buffett to the bank.
So even though there were these ethical issues later on, the core business remained solid.
Right.
What's the big lesson here then? Is it just buy good companies?
It's more nuanced than that. The Wells Fargo story highlights the importance of strong fundamentals and cost control, especially during times of uncertainty. It also shows that even great companies can stumble, but a strong core business can often survive such setbacks.
So if you do your homework and you find a well-managed company with a proven track record, you're more likely to come out ahead in the long run.
Right.
But it sounds like it also takes a healthy dose of patience.
Absolutely. Buffett didn't panic when the market crashed. He held on to his Wells Fargo shares because he believed in their long-term potential.
Now, we can't talk about contrarian investing without mentioning the airline industry.
No.
This volume covers Buffett's investment in US Air, which he himself called a flight to disaster.
Yeah.
What was he thinking investing in an airline of all things?
Well, the airline industry was undergoing massive changes in the early 1990s. Deregulation had intensified competition, and many airlines were struggling to stay afloat. U.S. Air in particular was facing intense pressure from low-cost carriers like Southwest.
So not exactly a recipe for success.
No,
Why did Buffett think this was a good idea?
he was betting on consolidation. He believed that the industry's struggles would force weaker players out, leaving the stronger ones like U.S. Air to dominate the market. He was also attracted to U.S. Air's preferred stock offering, which he thought would provide a good return.
But that consolidation never really happened, did it?
Not to the extent that Buffett had anticipated. The emergence of low-cost carriers like Southwest Airlines completely changed the game. They were able to operate much more efficiently than traditional airlines like U.S. Air, offering significantly lower fares without sacrificing profitability.
So can you give me a specific example of how Southwest was outcompeting US Air?
Sure. One key difference was their approach to aircraft utilization. Southwest flew only one type of aircraft, the Boeing 737, which simplified maintenance and crew training. They also turned their planes around much faster at the gate, allowing them to squeeze more flights out of each aircraft. U.S. Air, on the other hand, had a diverse fleet of aircraft and a more complex hub-and-spoke system, which made them less nimble and efficient.
So US Air was essentially stuck with high costs and an outdated business model, while Southwest was zipping past them with lower fares and a more streamlined operation.
Exactly. And this highlights a key lesson from the U.S. Air deal, the importance of understanding industry dynamics. Buffett misjudged the competitive landscape and the potential for disruption. He thought that the industry's problems were cyclical, but in reality, they were structural.
And that brings us to the big question. Did Buffett manage to salvage anything from this investment?
Not really. He eventually admitted defeat and sold his stake in US Air at a substantial loss. It was a tough lesson, but it's one that he learned from. He realized that even the best investors make mistakes, and the key is to acknowledge those mistakes, learn from them, and move on.
Well, we've seen a big win with Wells Fargo and a pretty big loss with US Air. Now let's move on to what I think is a classic Buffett success story, American Express. What was it about American Express that caught Buffett's eye?
American Express had a lot going for it in the early 1990s. First and foremost, the brand American Express was and still is synonymous with financial integrity and global reach. They had and still have incredibly loyal cardholders, and their traveler's checks were a staple for international travel.
But they were facing some serious challenges at the time, weren't they? Weren't they losing ground to Visa and MasterCard?
They were. Wall Street was deeply skeptical of American Express in the early 1990s. They had diversified into a bunch of businesses that weren't really working out, and their core card business was facing increased competition. Their stock price had taken a beating, and many investors were writing them off.
So what did Buffett see that everyone else missed? Why did he decide to invest when everyone else was running for the exits?
He saw the enduring power of what we call a moat, a durable competitive advantage that protects a company from competition and allows them to maintain high profits over the long term. In American Express's case, their moat was their powerful brand and their loyal customer base.
Okay, but how does a brand translate into actual profits?
Think of it this way. American Express's strong brand allowed them to charge higher fees to both cardholders and merchants. People were willing to pay a premium for the prestige and benefits associated with the American Express card. And merchants were willing to accept those higher fees because they knew that American Express cardholders were more likely to spend.
So it's like a virtuous cycle. A strong brand leads to higher prices, which leads to higher profits, which further strengthens the brand.
Exactly. And Buffett recognized that this virtuous cycle was still intact at American Express despite their recent struggles. He had faith in the underlying strength of the business and believed that with the right leadership, they could refocus on their core competencies and regain their footing.
And he was right, wasn't he? What happened after he invested?
A new CEO, Louis Gerstner, came in and did exactly what Buffett had anticipated. He refocused the company on their core businesses, cut costs, and expanded internationally. American Express staged a remarkable comeback, and Buffett's investment soared.
So the lesson here is that even when a company is facing challenges, a strong brand can be a powerful asset.
Right.
It's like a life raft that can keep a business afloat during tough times.
Right.
But it also sounds like timing is everything. Buffett was able to buy American Express when their stock was undervalued because the market was overly pessimistic about their prospects.
You've hit the nail on the head. Sometimes the best opportunities arise when the market is overly pessimistic about a company's prospects.
Yeah.
It's that contrarian approach again.
This is all starting to feel very relevant, even for someone like me who's not buying up entire companies. It's about making smart choices, understanding the forces at play, and recognizing that sometimes the best opportunities are the ones that others overlook.
Exactly. These principles apply to so many aspects of life.
And on that note,
Okay.
let's pick this back up and dissect some more of Buffett's fascinating deals.
Absolutely.
So ready for more aha moments.
Let's do it.
All right.
That's good.
Okay, so we're back, ready to dive into some more of Warren Buffett's intriguing deals. Last time we talked about Wells Fargo, US Air, and American Express.
Right.
We saw how Buffett's contrarian approach and his focus on fundamentals led to both like spectacular wins and a few humbling losses.
Right.
What's next on the agenda?
So let's shift gears from those financial giants and delve into a deal that showcases Buffett's deep appreciation for strong management and niche markets. Flight Safety International.
Flight Safety. That's the pilot training company.
Right.
It seems a bit off the beaten path, even for Buffett.
Yeah.
What was it about this company that caught his attention?
Well, it all started with the founder, Al Welchie, a true aviation pioneer with a lifelong passion for safety and excellence. He even served as Juan Trippi's personal pilot at Pan Am, witnessing firsthand how Trippi built a global airline from scratch.
Wow. Talk about an incredible experience. But what made Welchie decide to start a pilot training company?
He saw a critical need in the corporate aviation market. In those early days, there weren't the same rigorous training standards for corporate pilots as there were for commercial airline pilots. Welch, with his background at Pan Am, recognized this as a major safety concern.
So it was kind of like the Wild West out there.
Kinda.
Corporate pilots flying around without the same level of training as those flying for the big airlines.
You could say that, and it wasn't easy for Welch to convince these pilots that they needed more training. They were often resistant, thinking they already knew it all.
It's amazing how often the people who need something the most are the ones who resist it the strongest.
Yeah.
But clearly, Welch persevered.
He did, and flight safety eventually gained a reputation for its unwavering commitment to quality and safety. And that's precisely what drew Buffett to the company. He saw a company with a dominant market share, a strong track record of profitability, and most importantly, a leader who was deeply passionate about his mission.
It wasn't just about the numbers, it was about the man behind the business.
Right.
That seems to be a recurring theme in Buffett's investment philosophy.
Absolutely. Buffett believes that finding the right people is just as important as finding the right business. And in Welch, he found a leader who embodied the values of integrity, excellence, and long-term thinking. The fact that Welch remained CEO well into his 90s is a testament to the trust and respect that Buffett had for him.
It's inspiring to see a leader so dedicated to his company and its mission. Makes you think about the businesses in your own world. Are they built to last?
Yeah.
Do they have that enduring quality that comes from a strong culture and a commitment to something bigger than just profits?
Those are great questions for our listeners to ponder. Now, are you ready for something completely different? Let's talk about Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen, the ice cream chain. Now that's a curveball. I have to admit, this is the one that makes me wonder if Buffett just really loves blizzards.
Well, he is known for his sweet tooth. But remember, Buffett is always looking for undervalued assets with long-term potential. And Dairy Queen, despite its simple facade, fit the bill.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What did he see in Dairy Queen that others missed?
First, the brand Dairy Queen is an American icon. It evokes nostalgia, childhood memories, and simple pleasures. That kind of brand power is priceless. It creates a loyal customer base and a strong emotional connection that's hard to replicate.
So it's that moat again, that intangible something that protects a business from competition.
Exactly. Dairy Queen also had a very efficient franchise model, which allowed them to expand rapidly without taking on a lot of debt. The franchisees were the ones bearing the cost and risk of building and operating the stores, while Dairy Queen collected the royalties. It's a classic example of an asset-light business model, which means high returns on capital.
But didn't he pay a pretty hefty price for Dairy Queen?
He did. The price was higher than many analysts thought was reasonable. But Buffett was looking beyond the current numbers. He saw the potential for Dairy Queen to grow internationally, and he had confidence in their management team's ability to execute that vision. Plus, let's not forget, he genuinely enjoys the product. There's a story about him and Bill Gates sharing a Dairy Queen treat.
Okay, so maybe he does just really love blizzards. But jokes aside, this deal shows that sometimes the most unassuming businesses can be incredibly profitable. It's about looking beyond the obvious and recognizing the value of a strong brand, a solid business model, and a capable management team.
Precisely. It's another example of Buffett's contrarian approach. He's willing to invest in businesses that others might overlook if he sees the potential for long-term growth and profitability.
All right, from pilot training to ice cream, we're seeing the incredible range of Buffett's investments. What else is in store for us?
Let's explore a deal that speaks to Buffett's knack for spotting innovative business models with disruptive potential NetJets.
NetJets, the private jet company. That definitely sounds more like a billionaire's playground. What was the story there?
What intrigued Buffett was their innovative business model, fractional ownership of private jets. Instead of buying an entire jet, which is incredibly expensive, you could buy a share of one, like a 1/8 or 1/4 share.
So it's like a timeshare, but for private jets, you're buying the right to use the jet for a certain number of hours per year.
Exactly. And NetJets takes care of everything else, the pilots, the maintenance, the scheduling, even the catering. It's a hassle-free way to enjoy the benefits of private jet travel without the full cost and responsibility of ownership.
That's brilliant. They democratized private jet travel, making it accessible to a wider audience.
That was the genius of their model. It was a massive hit. NetJets grew rapidly, attracting CEOs, celebrities, and anyone else who valued their time and wanted to travel in style and comfort.
And this is a company that caught Buffett's eye. It seems like a departure from some of his more traditional investments.
It does. But remember, Buffett is always on the lookout for companies with a strong competitive advantage. And NetJets had a big one, their network effect. The more jets they had in their fleet, the more coverage they could offer, making them even more attractive to potential customers.
It's a classic case of the winner takes most. The bigger you are, the stronger you become.
Exactly. That's what made NetJets such a compelling investment for Buffett. He saw a company with a unique business model, a rapidly growing market, and a clear path to dominance. But there's a twist to this tale.
I was just thinking there has to be a but coming.
You're right. The NetJets deal, despite its initial promise, turned out to be one of Buffett's most challenging acquisitions.
What happened? Did the private jet market suddenly crash?
Not quite. The problem was more internal. NetJets, in their eagerness to grow, had expanded too quickly and taken on too much debt. They strayed from their core principles of disciplined growth and risk management. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit, exposing their vulnerabilities.
So it was a case of growing too fast for their own good. A classic case of overreaching.
You could say that. But to Buffett's credit, he didn't abandon NetJets. He brought in a new management team led by David Sokol, who was known for turning around struggling businesses.
It's amazing how a fresh perspective and a willingness to make tough choices can sometimes make all the difference.
Absolutely. And under Sokol's leadership, NetJets went through a major restructuring. They cut costs, reduced debt, and refocused on profitability. It was a painful process, but it ultimately saved the company.
So NetJets, after a period of turmoil, was able to recover and reclaim its position in the market.
That's right. They went back to basics, got their finances in order, and reestablished themselves as a leader in the fractional jet ownership industry.
The NetJets story has so many layers to it. It highlights the importance of staying true to your core principles even when you're experiencing rapid growth. It also underscores the importance of having a strong leadership team that can adapt to changing circumstances and make the tough decisions necessary to navigate a crisis.
You've summed it up perfectly. It's a reminder that even the most promising businesses can face unexpected challenges, and it's the companies with strong foundations and adaptable leadership that are best equipped to weather the storms.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey so far. From banks to pilot training to ice cream to private jets, Buffett's investment decisions cover a remarkable range of industries.
It's true, but underlying all these diverse deals is a consistent set of principles. Focus on the fundamentals, seek out companies with durable competitive advantages, find exceptional leaders, and always maintain a long-term perspective.
It's clear that he's not just chasing after the next hot stock or trying to time the market. He's looking for companies that he can own for years, even decades. Businesses that are built to last and create value over the long term.
Exactly. And that's a valuable lesson for all of us, regardless of whether we're investing in the stock market, building a business, or simply making decisions about our own lives.
Speaking of making decisions, let's revisit one deal that didn't quite go as planned, General Re. We talked about it earlier in the context of reinsurance, but Buffett himself has called this acquisition a disaster at times. Why? What went wrong? Okay, back to General Re. We talked about it earlier as a way for Buffett to get into that complex world of reinsurance. But now it's time for the deeper dive. Why does Buffett sometimes call this deal a disaster?
Well, it wasn't a smooth takeoff, to say the least. The initial years after the acquisition were marked by significant underwriting losses. They were paying out more in claims than they were taking in through premiums.
So it sounds like there were some fundamental issues with how General Re was assessing and pricing risk. Where did they go wrong?
You've hit the nail on the head. General Re had been underpricing its contracts and dabbling in some pretty risky derivative positions. Those derivatives, if not handled carefully, can be like financial landmines.
Derivatives, those are complex financial instruments, right? Not exactly the kind of straightforward investments we usually associate with Buffett.
That's true. Buffett generally prefers simple, understandable businesses. But he saw an opportunity with General Re to access a massive pool of capital known as float.
Right, float. That's the money insurance companies collect in premiums, but haven't yet paid out in claims.
Right.
It's essentially free money that they can invest and earn a return on.
Exactly. And that float was a major attraction for Buffett. He saw it as a way to fuel his other investments and amplify his returns.
So even though General Re was struggling initially, the access to that huge pool of float made it worthwhile in the long run.
That was the idea, and ultimately it did work out that way. But it wasn't without its challenges. Buffett had to bring in a new management team to instill a culture of disciplined underwriting and risk management.
It's amazing how often a change in leadership can make all the difference. Who did Buffett bring in to turn things around at General Re?
He turned to a man named Ajit Jain, who is considered a legend in the reinsurance world. Buffett himself has described Jain as the best in the business.
Wow. So under Jain's leadership, General Re eventually became a valuable asset for Berkshire Hathaway.
Precisely. Jain instilled a culture of disciplined underwriting focusing on profitability over growth. General Re went from being a problem child to a steady performer providing Berkshire Hathaway with a significant stream of float to fuel his other investments.
It sounds like this deal was a masterclass in patience resilience and the importance of having a deep understanding of the businesses you invest in.
You could say that Buffett recognized that even a disastrous acquisition can be turned around with the right leadership and a commitment to sound business principles. It reinforces the idea that success in any field often requires a long-term perspective and a willingness to adapt and learn from mistakes.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From Wells Fargo to Flight Safety to Dairy Queen to NetJets to General Re, we've seen how Warren Buffett's investment approach has evolved over time.
And yet, despite the diversity of these deals, there's a remarkable consistency to his core principles. Focus on the fundamentals. Seek out companies with durable competitive advantages and find exceptional leaders with integrity and a passion for their business.
It's about making smart choices, understanding the forces at play, and having the courage to go against the crowd when you see an opportunity that others might miss.
Exactly. And while we can't all be Warren Buffett, we can all learn from his wisdom and apply his principles to our own lives, whether we're investing in the stock market, building a business, or simply making decisions about our careers and finances.
This has been an incredible journey. We've explored the highs and lows of Warren Buffett's investment decisions, uncovering valuable insights and practical lessons along the way. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of Warren Buffett.
Until next time, remember to be greedy when others are fearful, and always keep those minds curious.